Welcome to another episode of Angel's Awesome Minds podcast powered by Angel's Awesome Books.
Today, we're jumping into something pretty close to home for a lot of us, the incredible journey of parenting. Specifically, guiding our kids through those really foundational skills like, learning to read. We all know every child learns differently, right? Their path is unique. And finding the right tools, well, that can just make a world of difference. And speaking of difference makers, today's focus is on how cutting-edge tech, specifically augmented reality AR books, is changing the game for early literacy. We're not just talking generally either. We'll really zoom in on the impact for children with autism and various learning disorders.
That's exactly right. Our mission today, if you will, is to explore how these AR books take reading from something passive, into something really immersive and interactive. We'll look at why this is such a game changer. For engagement, yes, but also for mastering phonics, and crucially, for supporting neurodiverse learners. We've got insights from various sources, and we'll definitely be taking a closer look at one great example, Angel's awesome alphabet book.
Okay, so get ready. Building on that idea of tools, let's unpack a challenge lots of parents probably recognize. Reading is fundamental, we all know that. But let's be honest, traditional books, much as we love them, sometimes find it hard to keep the attention of kids today. Our digital natives, they're surrounded by screens, and sometimes those printed pages can feel a little, flat in comparison.
Right. And this is really where we need to think about screen time a bit differently. It's not automatically a bad thing. When it's guided, when the content is purposeful, digital engagement can actually be a learning ally, a big one. And AR, augmented reality, it sort of bridges that gap perfectly. You get the feel of a real book, that tactile thing. But with the interactivity, kids are, frankly, used to now. It turns story time from, just sitting and listening into something kids genuinely get excited about. They look forward to it. They're not just looking at the story, they're almost in it.
Okay, so for anyone new to this, what exactly are augmented reality books? Can you break that down?
Sure. Think of a regular printed book, looks normal, feels normal, but then you use a mobile app.
On a phone or tablet?
Exactly, a smartphone or tablet.
Yeah.
You scan a page using the app's camera, and that's when the magic happens. The content just lifts off the page, letters might speak their sounds, characters start moving around, stories unfold in 3D animation.
Right there, overlaid on the physical book you're holding.
Precisely. It's laid right on top. And the how behind it, the app recognizes specific pictures or markers printed in the book. They're like triggers. Once the camera sees a trigger, the app overlays the visuals, plays the sounds, maybe launches a little mini game related to the page. The really powerful thing here is how it boosts comprehension. Because it's hitting multiple senses at once, visual, auditory, sometimes even interactive touch.
That multisensory thing sounds key. So look, an example from the source.
Right.
A child sees the letter B, right?
Right.
But they don't just see it. They also hear the B sound spoken clearly. Mm-hmm. And then maybe a little animated bear bounces onto the screen, or balloons float up, all tied to that B.
Exactly that kind of thing, that repetition. But paired with fun visuals and sounds, it builds really strong associations, much faster than just seeing B on a flashcard.
Yeah. And when we look at the research, what's fascinating is how these benefits really stack up for early literacy, especially those first steps. First off, phonics. AR books are great for strengthening phonics skills. They really promote phonemic awareness, that ability to hear and play with sounds in words, because you get that instant link. See the letter, hear the sound, see a fun animation connected to it. Kids grasp those sound-letter relationships much quicker. The visuals reinforce how letters look, sound, and work. Static print just can't do that in the same way.
And you mentioned a statistic about retention.
Yes, the sources point to this multisensory approach, potentially increasing retention rates by up to 70%.
70%? Wow.
It's significant. It's because the brain's forming more connections, right, across different pathways. It just sticks better. And then there's motivation and engagement. That's a huge one.
I can imagine it sounds way more fun. It absolutely is. Kids get to interact, explore at their own speed, trigger things when they want to. That control builds confidence. And maybe most importantly, it fosters a genuine enjoyment of reading. They start associating books with fun, with discovery, not just, homework.
So they're more likely to choose to read.
Much more likely. Plus, think about language development. They're hearing words used in context, with audio cues, sometimes even dialogue from characters. It expands vocabulary naturally through repetition. And finally, it encourages independent learning. Giving kids that control boosts their autonomy. They feel like they're in charge of their learning, which is powerful.
Okay, this all sounds great generally, but you mentioned zooming in on special education. Let's talk about that, because this is where it gets really interesting, particularly for parents of kids with autism or learning disorders.
Absolutely. This is arguably one of the most impactful areas for AR books. It's not just a fun extra, it's proving to be a really effective educational tool for these kids. AR offers this fantastic pathway to reach learners who might struggle with traditional methods, especially kids with autism, ADHD, speech delays, other learning disorders. Because it uses multiple channels, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, or movement-based learning, it meets them where they are.
Can you give some specific examples, say, for students with autism?
Definitely. So for kids on the autism spectrum, the consistency and predictability of AR can actually help reduce sensory overload. They can focus better on the learning task itself. This often leads to improved focus and engagement, which can be a challenge sometimes.
That makes sense. Less overwhelming, maybe.
Exactly. Also, the clear visual and auditory cues can make it easier to recognize things like facial expressions or social cues in the story characters. That can be a tough area, and this provides a safe, predictable way to practice. Plus, the repetition, the interactive parts, they really help enhance communication skills.
So teachers are seeing results.
Yes. The feedback is really positive. Teachers using AR and special ed report seeing improvements in interaction, attention span, and vocabulary. It creates a structured yet engaging environment that just works for many of these kids' learning styles.
It sounds like it provides a whole new toolkit, where the learning environment adapts to the student, not always the other way around.
That's a great way to put it. It is a massive shift. It can really make the difference for a child who might otherwise struggle or get left behind by more rigid methods.
Okay, so let's connect all this to a real-world example. You mentioned Angel's awesome alphabet book earlier.
Yes, it's a perfect illustration of these principles in action.
Tell us about it. It was developed by Angelique Marshall.
That's right. She's both a children's book author and, interestingly, a mental health counselor. So she brings a really valuable perspective.
And she talks about how learning the alphabet is critical, obviously, but AR is changing how kids learn their ABCs.
Exactly. She emphasizes that AR is transforming that foundational learning process, bringing it into the 21st century in a way that really connects with kids. Her goal with this book seems really centered on making learning inclusive, effective, and importantly, joyful for every child.
So what are the key features? What makes it stand out?
Well, first, the AR voice and sound effects. Each letter comes alive. You don't just see A, you hear the A sound narrated clearly, often with a related word and animation. That direct multisensory link really nails the phonemic awareness piece we talked about.
Okay.
It also includes practice pages for handwriting. That's great for kinesthetic learners, kids who learn best by doing, by moving.
Right, the physical tracing aspect.
And crucially, its design is inclusive. It was specifically developed with children with autism, speech delays, and learning disorders in mind. It recognizes their diverse needs. And on top of all that, it's designed to be super simple to use. Just scan with the app and the interaction begins. Low barrier to entry.
In the age range.
It's listed as best for ages 2 to 7, which is that prime window for early literacy. But honestly, the interactive nature means even slightly older kids might enjoy it or benefit if they're still solidifying those skills.
It sounds like a resource that really gets it, especially for kids needing that extra engagement or multisensory input.
I think so. It aligns well with those specific needs. So for parents listening who are thinking, okay, this sounds interesting, how do I actually use something like this at home? Any practical tips?
Good question. What would you suggest to maximize the benefit?
Well, consistency is key. Maybe set aside short, regular sessions, like 10 or 15 minutes a day, long enough to reinforce, but not so long it leads to screen fatigue.
Okay, short bursts. Makes sense.
Using headphones can be helpful too. It makes the audio clearer, helps with focus, minimizes distractions, good for auditory processing. And don't just stop with the app. Encourage maybe some writing practice after the session. Connect the digital to the physical. Trace the letter they just saw animated. Also talk about it. Talk through the animations, the sounds. What sound does B make? What did the bear do? Reinforce that learning verbally.
And repetition.
Absolutely. Don't be afraid to revisit pages. Repetition is fantastic for memory, especially when building those foundational skills. It helps things stick.
Those are really practical ideas. Thanks. Now, what about common questions parents might have? I can think of a few.
Let's tackle them.
Okay, first one. Do these AR books replace good old-fashioned traditional books?
Good one. No, definitely not. Think of them as complementary. They build excitement, reinforce concepts, but they don't replace cuddling up with a standard picture book. They're another tool in the toolkit.
Right. Okay, next, are they safe? All this screen time.
Understandable concern.
Yeah.
Yes, when used in moderation, like those short sessions we mentioned, and with supervision, they're considered safe. Actually, because they're interactive, they can be better than passive screen time, like just watching videos. The child is actively engaged, thinking, doing.
Good point. Active versus passive. And lastly, what about devices? Do I need fancy tech?
Generally, no. Most standard smartphones or tablets, both Android and Apple, will work with companion apps, so pretty accessible for most families.
That's reassuring.
And, the feedback from parents using these really says it all. We heard one quote, something like, "My daughter is speech delayed. This book helps her sound out letters and have fun doing it."
That's powerful.
It really is. It shows how AR can make learning feel personal, enjoyable, and actually really effective, especially when traditional methods maybe weren't clicking. It turns potential struggles into moments of discovery.
So wrapping this up, what's the big takeaway for parents listening, especially those navigating learning challenges with their kids?
I think the main point is that augmented reality books offer this really powerful, engaging, and importantly, inclusive path to literacy.
They're more than just a novelty.
Much more. They represent a genuine evolution in how we can support every child's unique journey towards becoming a confident reader, especially those who learn differently. We're seeing a real shift, aren't we? From maybe more passive learning to this active multisensory experience.
Yeah.
An experience that caters to different learning styles, strengthens those core skills, and just makes learning more accessible and, frankly, more fun. It's about unlocking potential in new ways.
And that specific resource we discussed, Angel's Awesome Alphabet book, seems like a great example of that potential in action.
Definitely want to check out if this resonates.
For anyone interested, you can find Angel's Awesome Alphabet book pretty easily. Check their website or look for it on Amazon or Google Books.
All this innovation, it kind of sparks a bigger question, doesn't it?
Oh, what's that?
Well, as we keep embracing these new technologies in learning, how might our actual understanding of what reading is? How might that continue to evolve? And thinking further, what new doors might this open for every single child's journey to knowledge? Something to think about.
That's a fascinating thought to end on. Thank you for joining us today. Keep exploring, keep learning, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to Angel's Awesome Minds podcast. Don't forget to visit Angel's Awesome Books at angels-awesomebooks.com for more tips and resources.